Welcome to the Forbidden Library podcast. I'm your host, Ben Carter. Imagine, if you will, a gospel hidden away for centuries, not included in the canonical New Testament. A gospel that offers an alternative perspective on the teachings of Jesus, one that challenges conventional understanding and invites us into a realm of enigmatic wisdom and spiritual enlightenment. This is the Gospel of Thomas, a collection of Jesus' sayings, or logia, discovered in the mid-20th century in the desert sands of Nag Hammadi, Egypt. The Gospel of Thomas isn't a narrative gospel as we are accustomed to seeing in the New Testament. It doesn't tell the life of Jesus, nor does it portray his crucifixion or resurrection. Instead, it presents 114 logia, each one a kernel of wisdom from the mouth of Jesus himself. But unlike the familiar parables and teachings found in the New Testament, these sayings are cryptic, enigmatic, and sometimes even paradoxical. For instance, let's consider one of the most well-known sayings in the Gospel: "The kingdom of God is within you and outside you." This phrase challenges the traditional Christian concept of a physical, external heaven, instead suggesting an inner spiritual realm that can be accessed here and now. It's a compelling and controversial idea that opens up a world of metaphysical and mystical interpretations. Nevertheless, it's essential to remember the context in which the Gospel of Thomas was written. It emerged from an early Christian movement known as Gnosticism, which placed a high value on personal spiritual knowledge, or gnosis. The Gnostics believed that salvation wasn't achieved through faith or good deeds, as mainstream Christianity asserts, but through personal revelation and self-discovery. For this reason, the Gospel of Thomas is filled with aphorisms and sayings designed to provoke contemplation and inspire spiritual insight. It's also worth noting the Gospel's distinct lack of a moral code. Unlike other Gospels, there are no commandments or rules for ethical behavior. Instead, the focus is on introspection and personal transformation. Some scholars argue that this reflects a more Eastern influence, echoing philosophies found in Buddhism or Taoism, where inner spiritual development takes precedence over external moral conduct. Intriguingly, many of the Gospel's sayings are cryptic and often baffling. For example, "When you make the two into one, you will become children of Adam. And when you say, 'Mountain, move from here,' it will move." This, like many of the logia, is not readily understood. It demands deep reflection and meditation, encouraging the reader to go beyond literal interpretation and delve into the realm of the symbolic and the metaphysical. Throughout our exploration of the Gospel of Thomas, we'll be confronted with these enigmatic teachings, each one inviting us to question, ponder, and explore the depths of our spiritual understanding. It's a journey into a world of hidden wisdom, a world that defies conventional religious thought and challenges us to see the divine in a wholly new light. To fully appreciate the Gospel of Thomas, we need to delve into the historical and cultural context of its creation. The Gospel was written at a time when Christianity was still in its infancy, a dynamic and diverse movement that had yet to crystallize into the established religious institution we know today. It was a time of great spiritual exploration and debate, with various Christian communities interpreting the teachings of Jesus in vastly different ways. The Gospel of Thomas is believed to have been composed in the 1st or 2nd century, a time when Gnosticism was a major force within Christianity. The Gnostics were a diverse group, united by their emphasis on personal spiritual knowledge or gnosis. They saw the material world as fundamentally flawed and believed that divine knowledge could liberate the soul from the physical realm. This view was at odds with the emerging Orthodox Christianity, which asserted that salvation was achievable through faith and the resurrection of the physical body. The Gospel of Thomas was likely written in Greek, the lingua franca of the Eastern Mediterranean at that time. It was then translated into Coptic, the language of early Christian Egypt. The surviving copies are written in Coptic and were discovered in the mid-20th century at Nag Hammadi, a small town in Upper Egypt. This is significant because Egypt was a major center of Gnosticism and the site of intense religious and philosophical debates. During this era, the Roman Empire dominated the Mediterranean world, and its influence permeated all aspects of life, including religion. The Romans initially tolerated Christianity, but as the new faith began to challenge the state-sanctioned religion, persecution intensified. Many Christian texts, including the Gospel of Thomas, were deemed heretical and suppressed. However, the Gospel of Thomas also reflects influences beyond the Roman Empire. Its aphoristic style and emphasis on introspection bear similarities to Eastern spiritual traditions. This suggests that the religious and philosophical ideas of the time were not confined by geographic boundaries, but were part of a larger, interconnected world of thought. The Gospel of Thomas thus emerges from a rich tapestry of cultural, philosophical, and religious influences. It's a testament to a time of profound spiritual exploration, where the boundaries of religious thought were pushed and expanded. The teachings within it echo this sense of exploration, inviting the reader not just to receive wisdom, but to actively seek it, to question, and to discover. As we journey through the Gospel of Thomas, we'll encounter these teachings within their historical and cultural context, offering us a deeper understanding of their profound and often enigmatic meanings. This exploration will take us beyond the familiar narratives of Orthodox Christianity and into the fascinating complexities of early Christian thought. It's here, in the shadows of history and on the fringes of religious orthodoxy, that we find the Gospel of Thomas, a text that challenges us to question, to seek, and to discover the divine within ourselves. The Gospel of Thomas, unlike the canonical Gospels, is not a narrative account of the life of Jesus. Instead, it is a compilation of 114 sayings, or logia, attributed to Jesus. It is this very structure that sets it apart from other known Christian Gospels. Each logion is an encapsulated teaching, a kernel of wisdom, to be contemplated and understood. They are presented without commentary or interpretation, leaving the reader to grapple with their meaning. The manuscript we have today was discovered as part of the Nag Hammadi Library, a collection of 13 leather-bound papyrus codices unearthed in 1945. The Nag Hammadi texts represent a vast range of beliefs and practices that thrived within early Christianity, many of which were branded as heretical and suppressed by the Orthodox Church. The Gospel of Thomas was found within the Second Codex, bound along with other texts such as the Apocryphon of John and the Gospel of Philip. It's written in Coptic, a language that was widely spoken in Egypt during the time and used by the early Christian communities there. However, scholars believe that the Coptic version is a translation from an earlier Greek text, as evidenced by several Greek fragments of the Gospel discovered earlier in the 20th century. The Gospel of Thomas doesn't claim to provide a biographical account of Jesus' life. Instead, it presents itself as a collection of secret sayings that Jesus shared with his disciples. The opening lines of the Gospel state, "These are the secret sayings that the living Jesus spoke and Didymos Judas Thomas recorded." This sets the tone for the rest of the text, which eschews narrative for a series of cryptic and profound sayings. The exact date of the Gospel's composition is a matter of ongoing scholarly debate. Some argue for a mid-1st century date, around the same time as the canonical Gospels. Others suggest a later date, in the early to mid-2nd century. However, despite this uncertainty, the Gospel of Thomas provides invaluable insight into the diverse landscape of early Christian thought. The Gospel of Thomas, like the other texts discovered at Nag Hammadi, challenges our understanding of early Christianity. It reminds us that what we now consider orthodox was once one voice among many, and that the teachings of Jesus were interpreted and understood in a myriad of ways. As we delve deeper into the Gospel of Thomas, we'll encounter a Jesus who is sometimes familiar, sometimes challenging, always pushing us towards a deeper, more personal understanding of the divine. Delving into the heart of the Gospel of Thomas, we uncover a wealth of ideas, beliefs, and teachings that have been dubbed dangerous by the Orthodox establishment. This is not because they pose a physical danger, but because they upend the established order of belief, challenging the very foundations upon which traditional Christianity was constructed. The Gospel of Thomas contains 114 sayings, each one attributed directly to Jesus. However, unlike the canonical Gospels, these teachings are not embedded in stories or parables. They stand alone, cryptic and profound, inviting the reader to engage in a personal interpretation. The Gospel of Thomas, in essence, invites us into a direct, personal encounter with the divine wisdom of Jesus, shorn of any narrative context or interpretive framework. This is where the controversial aspect of the Gospel lies. Rather than providing a prescriptive, authoritative account of Jesus' life and teachings, the Gospel of Thomas encourages an individual, experiential understanding of the divine. This stands in sharp contrast to the Orthodox Christian tradition, which emphasizes a communal faith, mediated through the Church and its interpretation of Scripture. The Gospel of Thomas's teachings can also be seen as dangerous due to the emphasis it places on self-knowledge as the route to salvation. In saying 3, Jesus is quoted as saying, "If those who lead you say to you, 'See, the kingdom is in the sky,' then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, 'It is in the sea,' then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you." This implies a direct personal experience of the divine, accessible through introspection and self-awareness. It suggests that the kingdom of God is not a distant, abstract realm, but a present reality that can be experienced here and now. Another potentially unsettling idea in the Gospel is its apparent disregard for traditional religious rituals and laws. In saying 6, Jesus is quoted as saying, "His disciples asked him and said to him, 'Do you want us to fast? How should we pray? Should we give to charity? What diet should we observe?' Jesus said, 'Don't lie, and don't do what you hate.'" The Gospel of Thomas, then, presents a radically different vision of Jesus and his teachings. It's a vision that emphasizes personal experience over communal ritual, self-knowledge over dogmatic belief, and present reality over future reward. It's a vision that, in its time, was deemed dangerous enough to be suppressed and hidden away. Yet, it's a vision that continues to resonate with many, offering a fresh and challenging perspective on the teachings of Jesus. Before we delve deeper into the teachings themselves, it's important to situate the Gospel of Thomas within a historical and physical context. The question of authenticity is one that has long haunted this text, and while we may never have definitive answers, the evidence we do have makes for a fascinating exploration. The Gospel of Thomas was discovered in 1945 near the town of Nag Hammadi in Egypt. It was found among a collection of ancient documents, now known as the Nag Hammadi Library, hidden in a sealed jar. The texts were written in Coptic, an ancient language of Egypt, but the Gospel of Thomas is believed to have been originally composed in Greek, as indicated by fragments of a Greek version found at Oxyrhynchus, also in Egypt. The physical manuscripts date from the 4th century AD, but most scholars agree that they are copies of much older documents. Some researchers have proposed that the Gospel of Thomas could have been written as early as the 1st century AD, around the same time as the canonical Gospels. This would mean that the teachings it contains are potentially as old as those found in the New Testament. However, the dating of the text is a contentious issue. While some scholars argue for an early date, others suggest that the Gospel of Thomas was written in the 2nd or even 3rd century AD. These latter scholars contend that the text shows signs of Gnostic influence, a religious movement that didn't fully develop until the 2nd century. This debate over dating has important implications for the authenticity of the teachings contained in the Gospel. An earlier date would suggest that they could be directly linked to Jesus himself, while a later date might imply that they were the product of later, possibly Gnostic, communities. The Gospel's physical authenticity is bolstered by the fact that it was found as part of a library of texts, many of which also contain sayings of Jesus. These texts, known collectively as the Gnostic Gospels, share a similar focus on knowledge and self-discovery. The existence of such a library suggests that there may have been an entire community of early Christians who followed these teachings, further indicating that the Gospel of Thomas's perspective on Jesus was not an isolated phenomenon. Despite these physical and historical markers of authenticity, the Gospel of Thomas is not recognized as canonical by any major Christian denomination. Yet, its very existence challenges our understanding of early Christianity, suggesting a more diverse and complex landscape of belief than previously imagined. The Gospel of Thomas invites us to explore not just a different interpretation of Jesus' teachings, but also a different understanding of the early Christian world. The Gospel of Thomas has been the subject of intense debate and scrutiny since its discovery. Despite the historical and physical markers of authenticity we've explored, its teachings remain outside mainstream Christian theology. The question arises, why? Let's delve into the history of religious censorship, suppression, and gatekeeping. In the early centuries after Christ, Christianity was not a unified religion with a single set of beliefs. There were various Christian sects, each with their own interpretations of Jesus' teachings. These included the Gnostics, who held a different perspective on Christ's teachings, focusing more on personal spiritual knowledge and self-discovery. The Gospel of Thomas, with its focus on such introspective wisdom, falls well within the Gnostic tradition. Yet it is conspicuously absent from the New Testament. This omission was not accidental, but the result of careful selection and suppression of texts by early church leaders. In the 4th century AD, under the reign of Emperor Constantine, the Council of Nicaea was convened. The council's main purpose was to bring unity to the Christian Church and to suppress what was considered heretical or nonconformist beliefs. Texts that did not conform to the emerging mainstream Christian theology were deemed heretical and were systematically excluded from the canon. The Gospel of Thomas, with its Gnostic leanings, was one of these excluded texts. In this period, church leaders held the keys to the kingdom of knowledge, deciding what was to be included in the Bible and what was to be left out. The Gospel of Thomas did not fit into their interpretation of Christianity. So it was suppressed, relegated to the shadows, and its teachings declared as heresy. It's important to note that this process of gatekeeping was not unique to Christianity. Throughout history, powerful religious and political institutions have often controlled, censored, and suppressed knowledge that did not align with established doctrines or threatened their authority. But the Gospel of Thomas survived, hidden away for centuries, until its discovery in the mid-20th century. Its existence forces us to confront the reality of censorship and suppression in religious history. It challenges the narrative of a unified, monolithic early Christianity and reveals a more diverse landscape of belief, one that includes voices that were silenced and teachings that were suppressed. The Gospel of Thomas invites us to question, to explore, and to discover the hidden teachings of early Christianity. It reminds us that the quest for spiritual truth is often a journey through forbidden territories. In the Gospel of Thomas, we find teachings that have more in common with mystical, occult, and spiritual philosophies than with mainstream Christianity. The text's emphasis on inner knowledge and self-discovery echoes the ideas found in various spiritual traditions, from Eastern philosophies such as Buddhism and Taoism to Western esoteric traditions like Hermeticism and Gnosticism. Take, for instance, the Logion where Jesus says, "If those who lead you say, 'See, the kingdom is in the sky,' then the birds of the sky will precede you. If they say to you, 'It is in the sea,' then the fish will precede you. Rather, the kingdom is inside of you, and it is outside of you." This teaching, at its core, is about looking inward for spiritual truth, a concept that resonates strongly with mystical and occult philosophies. Additionally, the Gospel of Thomas's emphasis on transcending dichotomies and dualities also echoes mystical and occult teachings. For example, the text urges its readers to make the two into one, to unite male and female, and to perceive the physical and spiritual realms as interconnected, not separate. This call for unity and integration reflects a common theme in mysticism and the occult, where spiritual truth is often seen as transcending the dualities of ordinary perception. In its esoteric teachings, the Gospel of Thomas also appears to provide a guide or blueprint to spiritual enlightenment. Many of its logia, or sayings, are cryptic, requiring interpretation and contemplation, much like Zen koans or Sufi parables. It's almost as if the text is inviting its readers on a spiritual journey, encouraging them to look within, to question, to seek, and to discover their own divine nature. Yet it's important to remember that the Gospel of Thomas is not a manual for spiritual practice. It doesn't provide specific rituals, mantras, or meditative practices like some other spiritual and occult texts. Instead, it offers wisdom and insight, challenging its readers to embark on a spiritual quest of self-discovery. In this sense, the spiritual implications of the Gospel of Thomas extend beyond any single religious tradition. Its teachings resonate with a universal human longing for self-understanding and transcendence, a longing that finds expression in many different spiritual, mystical, and occult traditions. In the end, the Gospel of Thomas reminds us that spiritual truth is not something that can be dictated or controlled by institutions or authorities. It is a deeply personal journey, one that requires introspection, questioning, and the courage to seek out the hidden and the forbidden. While the Gospel of Thomas might not be a regular fixture in Sunday school classes or Bible study groups, its influence has not been confined to the religious or spiritual arena. Its echoes can be traced in various forms of modern media and several subcultures, where its teachings have been subtly woven into narratives and philosophies. Take, for example, the realm of science fiction and fantasy literature. Writers in these genres often explore themes of spiritual self-discovery, transcending dualities, and hidden wisdom, echoing some of the central teachings of the Gospel of Thomas. In novels like Philip K. Dick's Valis or Frank Herbert's Dune, characters embark on journeys of self-discovery and spiritual transformation, often guided by cryptic teachings and prophecies that require interpretation and contemplation. In the world of cinema, too, the Gospel of Thomas's influence can be seen. Films like The Matrix and Cloud Atlas explore themes of self-discovery, transcendence, and the search for hidden truth, with characters who must look within themselves to understand their true nature and the nature of reality. In music, particularly in genres like psychedelic rock or New Age, the Gospel of Thomas's teachings of inner exploration and transcending dualities have found a home. Lyrics often delve into spiritual and mystical themes, encouraging listeners to embark on their own journeys of self-discovery, much like the Gospel of Thomas does. And of course, we cannot overlook the influence of the Gospel of Thomas in modern spiritual and occult subcultures. In these circles, the text is often seen as a valuable source of wisdom and inspiration, its cryptic sayings serving as a kind of spiritual code to be deciphered. Many practitioners of modern mysticism and occultism seek to apply its teachings in their spiritual practices, using them as a guide to spiritual enlightenment. The Gospel of Thomas's emphasis on individual spiritual exploration and the quest for hidden wisdom aligns well with the values of these subcultures. Its teachings resonate with those who reject mainstream religious institutions in favor of individual spiritual paths, who value personal experience and intuition over doctrine and dogma. In this sense, the Gospel of Thomas continues to serve as a spiritual guide for many, its teachings taking on new life and new meanings in the context of modern culture. It speaks to a deep-seated human desire for spiritual self-discovery, a desire that remains as relevant today as it was 2,000 years ago. Beyond the mainstream, the Gospel of Thomas has also been the subject of more fringe interpretations and theories. These alternative perspectives often delve into the mystical and esoteric, viewing the Gospel as a coded text concealing profound spiritual secrets. One such theory posits that the Gospel of Thomas is a Gnostic text, a belief system that emerged in the early Christian era, characterized by the conviction that salvation comes through knowledge, or gnosis. Gnostics held a dualistic worldview, seeing the material world as flawed and the spiritual realm as the true reality. They believed that divine sparks were trapped in human bodies, and that through gnosis, these sparks could be liberated. Through this lens, the Gospel of Thomas's focus on inner wisdom and self-discovery can be seen as advocating for this Gnostic path to salvation. Its cryptic sayings are viewed not simply as spiritual advice, but as coded instructions for achieving gnosis. Another theory proposes that the Gospel of Thomas contains hidden teachings of Jesus that were intentionally suppressed by early church authorities. This perspective views the Gospel as a subversive text, its teachings a challenge to the religious orthodoxy of the time. According to this theory, the Gospel's emphasis on individual spiritual exploration and self-knowledge was seen as a threat to the Church's authority, leading to its exclusion from the canonical Bible. Then there are those who believe that the Gospel of Thomas is not just a Christian text, but a synthesis of multiple spiritual traditions. Some scholars have noted similarities between the Gospel's teachings and those of other ancient religions and philosophies, such as Buddhism, Taoism, and Hermeticism. This theory suggests that the Gospel of Thomas represents a kind of spiritual universalism, its teachings a distillation of wisdom from diverse sources. While these theories may be seen as fringe by mainstream academia, they reflect a desire to look beyond the surface and explore hidden meanings and connections. They speak to a broader human longing for mystery, for the sense that there is more to reality than meets the eye, that beneath the surface of the everyday world are profound truths waiting to be discovered. Every interpretation, every theory, uncovers a new layer of meaning, a new perspective on this ancient text. Each reader brings their own experiences, their own spiritual journey, to their reading of the Gospel of Thomas. And as they decipher its cryptic sayings, they continue the tradition of spiritual exploration and self-discovery that the Gospel has inspired for centuries. As this exploration draws to a close, it's clear that the Gospel of Thomas continues to be a source of fascination and contention. Its cryptic verses, its elusive authorship, its exclusion from mainstream Christian canon, all these elements contribute to an aura of mystery that continues to captivate scholars, spiritual seekers, and conspiracy theorists alike. The hidden teachings of the Gospel of Thomas may be cryptic, but they seem to echo a timeless human quest for understanding, for a deeper connection to the divine, on terms that are personal and intimately individual. This Gospel does not offer easy answers, but instead, it invites readers into a process of seeking and questioning. It compels us to look inward, to interrogate our own beliefs and assumptions, and to embark on a journey of spiritual self-discovery. But what if the real secret of the Gospel of Thomas is not in its hidden teachings, but in the very act of seeking them? What if the true wisdom lies not in the attainment of some esoteric knowledge, but in the process of seeking, questioning, and discovering? This Gospel, often seen as a subversive text or an alternative Christian teaching, may actually be reminding us that spirituality is not about dogma or doctrine, but about the ongoing pursuit of understanding. This Gospel, with its enigmatic pronouncements, could be guiding us towards the realization that the divine is not something to be found in a church, a temple, or a holy book, but within ourselves. Yet, these interpretations and questions are but a glimpse into the vast, complex universe of the Gospel of Thomas. With every reading, with every interpretation, new questions arise, new possibilities are revealed. What other secrets might be hidden within its verses? What more might we discover about early Christianity, about Jesus, or about ourselves? As we delve deeper into the Gospel of Thomas, we come to see that its most profound teachings may not be hidden at all, but are right there in plain sight, waiting for us to uncover them. The Gospel invites us into a journey, a quest, a path of self-discovery that continues to unfold with each reading. It beckons us to look within, to question, to seek, and in doing so, to find our own unique path to the divine. The Gospel of Thomas may be an ancient text, but its teachings are timeless, its wisdom universal. It reminds us that the search for spiritual understanding is not a destination, but a journey, one that continues to inspire, challenge, and enlighten us, even 2,000 years after its creation. And so, as we step away from this exploration of the Gospel of Thomas, let us carry with us these lingering questions, these profound reflections, and let us continue the journey, embracing the mystery, the uncertainty, and the endless pursuit of understanding. For in the end, it is not the answers we find, but the questions we ask that truly illuminate our path. Thanks for listening. This has been the Forbidden Library Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.